also the budget. So let's come back to the questions. Yeah. So we can start, maybe I'll start with the one at the last row. Question is about this is apparently a big mystery about the new income tax regime. So we will club 2 or 3 questions together, but I will ask Professor Kavita Rao to be ready with the answer, because next question. Yeah, please go ahead. Please give the mic.
Dr. Gangopadhyay, while concluding your speech, you did said that the present system of skilling is not a perfect system. My query to you and to you and Dr. Dr. Ajit Ranade is, can we form a format and can you prepare a report how this could be done? How we can bring all these things together?
Okay.
See, we understand that at present there are a lot of lacunas in this.
Yeah.
There are shortcomings, but only saying that shortcomings are there will not help. Now, really, we want the answer from the you economists that how this can be done.
Okay. Fair
Thank
point.
you.
Yeah, thank you. So we had 4 questions. One starting with the new income tax. Then we have skilling. We have TCS and poor. So, Dr. Kavita Rao, would you like to take the first question on the new, very briefly, the mystery of the new income tax proposal? So, but very briefly, if you can tell us about the new income tax scheme. Is it, there is a charge against it that this is just hocus pocus and it is really not reducing income tax? Can you just give us a simple interpretation?
Yeah, so the simple interpretation is that by raising the slabs and the threshold, we have delivered some benefits to the taxpayer. The sales pitch is that for people now can pay lower tax without having to save, and that seems to be the thing that attracts the taxpayer. Because earlier you had to do ATC savings or to do insurances of various kinds in order to avail the benefits. Now you can get that lower rate without having to do savings. As far as NPS is concerned, it has not been excluded from, it has been excluded from the coverage of the new scheme. So contributions to NPS continue to give you benefits, but contributions to PF or the ATC chapter 6 have been eliminated. So
Okay.
I hope that clarifies.
Okay. But I would
skilling is something which can be earned informally by looking at, by reading on our own, by learning on your own. But it can also be given part of the blend of something that can be called a classroom teaching plus something like a hands-on experience. Skilling program per se does not say that it must be necessarily with the educational institution. That's the reason why ITI, like a setup, was thought that they would be able to deliver that so-called hands-on experience kind of thing more easily. But it is mostly an outdated and even dilapidated status, because even many of them do not have adequate staff to train them. Secondly, there are skillings of various sorts, and that kind of a diversity cannot be always handled only by formal educational institutions. Some of them have to be, in fact, only learning by doing with someone else who is doing it. And that's the way in which large number of skills are actually acquired. So to believe that every kind of a skilling can be undertaken by the government itself is a mirage. There are certain kinds of skills for which there is obvious demand. There is possibility of doing a kind of a micro world to be created where conceptually, as well as in terms of handling of it in real terms, person becomes little more comfortable and therefore little more capable, so that he could be easily hired. There are, one can go on to like this, there are many my friends who run the company tell me that the B engineers don't know how to handle simple equipments. So that is something which is a gap in educational institutions as well. And if you hope educational institution to address all these gaps, perhaps again we are doing the same ITI kind of a mistake. Better option would be educational institutions come together, form a pool, and jointly use certain kinds of skilling or training facilities of the type which are not confined to very narrow definition.
Completely agree with what Pradeep just said. I'll just add one more thing. In India, unfortunately, higher education essentially trains you to be more and more elitist, right? You move further and further away from where you started. And that is because we give too much respect or significance to knowledge. वो बहुत कुछ जानते हैं, right? That's our standard description, right? Public intellectualism is the most important thing in India. You can talk on anything, right? So if we move away from that and train our students to become problem solvers, problems around them, we start building educational institutions in huge campuses away from the city, put the faculty and the students together for 4 or 5 years, completely disconnected with life around them. And then we expect them to solve society's problems. The education system, the way we plan it, has to change. People have to be connected to where they're studying. IIT Kharagpur was built so that, it was one of the first IIT, or the first IIT, right? It was built so that the area around it could develop. What goes on in IIT Kharagpur, people outside don't know. What is happening outside, people inside IIT Kharagpur don't know. So that's what I mean by, training people. That's what the education system does, to be problem solvers. Which problems? Society's problems, the society they're coming from. The oldest, one of the oldest surviving institutions in the world, in its charter, it says the following thing. University of Lund in Sweden, it says, in its very first paragraph, the objective of the institution is to train the Danes, that is to say people from Denmark, train the Danes how to behave like the Swedes. If you look at Oxford University, all our governors general came from that university. Right? So that is what you have to do. You have to train people to solve your society's problems. And that we are not doing. How many engineers, Pradeep just mentioned, how many engineers in India, in the IITs, spend time in a lab?
The question on the third largest economy, India becoming. So I have seen at least one set of numbers, the latest IMF forecast. They have indeed forecasted that by 28-29, India is going to surpass both Germany and Japan and going to be the third largest economy. One. Two, please do remember these are nominal number. So there are three ways you can grow. One is higher inflation prices, higher productivity, or an appreciated rupee. So either of the three ways you can grow. And the third thing is, if you take per capita income, by the time India is becoming the third largest economy, I've checked the ranking. India's ranking in the world in the per capita ladder is something in the range of 140.
140, that's right. So India will be ranked out of 190 countries 141st or something.
Seriously, after demonetization, you still think that the poor vote because of that? When let's be real, and the poverty is coming down, so that's not the largest constituency anymore.
The crowding out that was asked. See, the crowding out is an easy thing to talk in class. There is some kind of crowding in when the government expenditure goes up. What I was referring to as a private investment being stagnant is in fact more about the registered, organized, and that too in fact mostly corporate sector. Because there have been, as Subhashis rightly mentioned, we often look for the solutions at the center and where the problems actually lie at the state level or at the local level. It is the politics at the local level, it is the nuisance at the local level or the irritation at the state level that often causes the private investment not to be so forthcoming because of the kind of things that they face.
Summing up in that sense, the crucial question is that private investment is not picking up. We do not have a good handle on that, first. Second, there are hypotheses about lack of demand. Professor Kaushik Basu mentions about something to do with business trust could be responsible. So I do not know the reality, but that's one question that is haunting us over the last 6 to 7 years, if I have the data. We do not have very recent private investment data, but at least the firm data doesn't say so. So end of the day, it's how much the government can do, how much the private sector has to be forthcoming. It's altogether a different question.
As for the investment, well, India has never been very progressive with investment. Essentially, we're a country of traders, not of producers. As I keep saying, risk trading is not there. Risk taking is not there, right, in the older companies. And since 91, Wherever there is a demand gap, we have moved in. Many of the things we count as innovation are essentially meeting demand gaps. They're business innovations. They're not technological innovations. Technological innovations are really being done by the small startups. It's not being done by big business, right? The very big businesses in IT also are not doing it.
It's a 40 lakh crore budget, which means for every man, woman and child in India, it's 1/3 of a lakh spending. So in your name, in our name, the finance minister is planning to spend 1/3 of a lakh, almost 33,000 rupees. So it's a big deal, even though, but unfortunately, half of the taxes are not in the budget because half the taxes collected are in GST, which is outside the ambit of the finance minister. The finance minister has nothing to say on that. It's now part of GST Council. So that's why, as the panelists also said, some of it has become kind of routine or uninteresting. And because this event is watched by millions and millions of people inside and outside India, this is used as an opportunity to make a political statement. So therefore, you had this budget speech in terms of a list of achievements. So we didn't actually see a lot of discussion or speech in terms of the actual nitty-gritties because perhaps, as we are seeing, they are becoming a large part of it is non-discretionary. For example, interest payments, something like 10 to 12 lakh crores, 10 to 12 trillion rupees, there's no choice. You have to spend it. And that's increasing. India is, by the way, an outlier among all the major nations, especially emerging market economies. The amount of money we spend on interest on debt alone is almost 3 times the average of all emerging market countries. We spend 42 or 45% of our tax revenues. So that is why economists talk about fiscal concerns all the time. But because we have a young demography, so in terms of today's deficit is tomorrow's taxes. If I have a deficit today, I have to borrow money, therefore I have to repay it tomorrow, so I have to have taxes tomorrow. So tomorrow's generation, because there are more people being born, the per capita load of tax burden for tomorrow's generation is relatively manageable. So we kick the can in the future. But our demography is continuously, it is only a 20-year window. There will be a rapid aging even in India.
Thank you, Ranade sir, for chairing the sessions. We were all just witness tremendous engaging morning and afternoon learnings and takeaways on the budget from these experts. Unfortunately, the event must end, but not before the round of applause and thank you. At the outset on behalf of Pune International Centre and Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our speakers. We look forward to many more engagements with you. Again, a special round of applause for our PIC staff and Gokhale Institute staff for their untiring support and the planning for that you put behind every event.